Did you guys see the press conference yesterday? This thing was wild, man. So, this is on a Thursday. On a Thursday in Las Vegas, they brought in 8,000 people to watch two dudes talk about a fight. With no chance and or expectation of a fight breaking out, they brought in 8,000 people, 8,000 fight fans. That is so incredible to me. I remember when Floyd and Conor were going to fight, and they did a world tour. And they held 4 press conferences, but they took them to different countries. And it was unbelievable. One of them was held in LA at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. That's a very random time to be doing anything where you need people to come in and get time off work and find a place to park and walk inside then they're fight fans that have absolutely no reasonable expectation that a fight is going to break out. You're just going to have two guys talking about fighting. I find that to be amazing. And at any rate, very handsome guy, this very well-spoken guy gets to the microphone and he decides to take his shot. And his shot is that he's going to be confrontational and he's going to go directly at Dana. So, it was very clear what the guy was doing, but at the same time, I must say, to a degree, he pulled it off. Like, the guy did have a certain charm about him, and he came in from a perspective of, hey, Dana, you're coming in and you're saying that you're going to take over boxing. You're going to be a leader in boxing. But what you are going to do is against the Ali Act. Oh, and by the way, you've already been sued multiple times in court over this very thing. I mean, it's just a nasty. Dana called him right on it. He goes, hey, you looking to be a jerk? Called him an a-hole. He goes, yeah, you looking to be a jerk? You want to talk about this? I'm a CEO. I got to deal with tough questions. Fine, you call my office. I'll tell you right now. I'll give you an interview and we'll do this. But that's not what this is. This isn't time to ask me questions about my business, about lawsuits. This is a time to ask a question of Canelo and of Crawford. And it was a perfect answer by Dana. And Dana was equally as confrontational. He didn't go above this guy, but he didn't come under him. He went head to head, and this guy didn't back down. He said, I will ask you as a follow-up. Now, the guy isn't promised a follow-up. There's no guarantee you get a follow-up. You must be called on for a follow-up. But he stepped in front of it, and he goes, I will ask you as a follow-up. And it was great. It was great. It was very good by this dude. He was well prepared. But it bothered me. It bothered me to a degree, and here's the degree. You don't know anything about the Ali Act. And I don't say that to be a condescending prick. I am the longest licensed promoter in the United States of America, not named Dana White. The only person in America licensed to promote MMA before I got my license was Dana White. And I got dragged into court 7 times. I was 24 years old. My father had died, like my guidance. I got no money. I got no anything. I got to go to court 7 times. I won all 7 times. There is very few people you could go to, lawyers included, that could explain the process to you and the history of it better than me. And I will tell you, as it pertains to the Ali Act, it is not a terrible piece of legislation. There is a number of very bad pieces of legislation that were never meant to do anything. Think of the biggest library you've ever been in. If you went to college, it was likely you're the one that was on campus. But just think of the biggest library you've ever been in. Times that by 3. That's a federal law library, and nobody knows what's in all those books. Nobody. The Supreme Court does not know what's in those books. They got to hear cases, they got to hear arguments, and they got to look to this, and they got to find out about a precedent. It's one of these things, and I'll just tell you, The Ali Act is not a terrible piece of legislation. It's actually written very well. Now, the letter of the law will always trump the intent of the law. You'll have people that will tell you, I have that backwards, but I don't. I'm right. The letter of the law will hold out over the intent of the law, but let's look to the intent because it's a very relevant thing. Now, when the Ali Act came out, without getting into the minutia of it, it gave more power to the states and the commissions. Now, the only sport outside of communist regimes, the only sport in a free society regulated by government happens to be boxing, which is now also MMA. So the Ali Act from a federal level gave and helped to support the authority of the commissions. It also made it clear that within the commissions, some of your guidelines are as follows, and it laid some of them out. It had to do with medicals, had to do a big part that the promoter cannot have a financial interest in the athlete. It had to do with a ranking system. It had to do with fair play and how you're going to bid on fights. There was a number of things I just want to share with you. When you come out and you start talking like an expert on the Ali Act, and you come down to the intent, it really wasn't bad. They really didn't do that bad of a job. Considering this is a bill that absolutely nobody cared about. There was nobody in Congress or the Senate. There was a senator, rest his soul, named Kennedy, who had a few things to do with boxing. He's actually most famous for telling Bob Arum on the floor of the United States Senate, if Marvin Hagler does not get a title fight, we're going to have a hearing about it. Boom, Marvin Hagler fought for the title. That's what he's most known for, but I'm just sharing for you. Nobody cared when this piece of law got signed by the president. There was nobody that cared. It was one of these things that was pushed through, and generally things like that are written pretty sloppy. This wasn't. It's really not that bad, but to make my point, it had to do with the sport of boxing, and it had to do with a protection, at least in theory, to the integrity of the sport of boxing, which nobody was a real master at because no sport is regulated by government aside from boxing. We now, and when the gentleman asked the question yesterday, we now aren't living in the same time about the sport of boxing. We're now in where we're in the business of boxing. And that's a very wildly different thing. And I often will tell you guys, there's 5 men on earth that know how to make money in combat, in boxing, in MMA. There's 5. And it's just a very rare thing. I mean, think about it. Think about yourself. If a teacher or a friend or a parent ever asked you when you were a kid what you wanted to do, you never said, I want to be in the fight business. You don't have a friend that ever said they want to be in the fight business. There is no library that you can check out a book on the fight business. There is no college you can go and major in the fight business, right? It's one of these things. You're going to step in, you're going to lose a whole bunch of money getting your education, and maybe you're going to be able to write the script. And there's about 5 guys on the face of the earth that can do that. Now, when I tell you the business, I will hear so many people that even believe that they're experts in the fight game. They will go and get a promoter license. They'll go lose a whole bunch of money, and they'll think that they're in the pay-per-view and the live gate business. Then you get the really smart guy that is in the distribution and he's in the live gate business. Then you get the really smart guy that realizes the live gate is very small and you're in the sponsorship business, but you can't get the sponsorship until you get the viewers. Now you've got the whole game figured out. But they also think that it's for the night of action. What they don't understand is the build around it. You've got the pre-show, which you can sell. That's not on pay-per-view. You can sell that to networks. You've got the post-show, which also doesn't go on pay-per-view. You have the right to sell that to networks. You have a right to do a North American deal. And you've got a right to do a South American deal. And you've got a right to do a European deal. Just for example, got 168 countries around the world, and you can go and do your exclusive deals. But now you got a post-show to talk about the action that happened. That maybe the guy bought, maybe the guy didn't, but he's still going to watch that show. Then you got the pre-show if it's an interesting fight. So now you got a whole other piece of business with a whole other set of sponsors, a whole other set of eyeballs, which again isn't on pay-per-view, but everybody that's an expert in the fight business is going to tell you you've only got pay-per-view and you've got the live gate. They just simply don't know what they're talking about. Then you've got somebody that figures out, man, I could put these guys on a scale. I could turn that into a show. And I have to put them on a scale anyway because the commission says so. Why don't I bring the cameras out and sell that to 168 different countries around the world? Just by example. Then you're going to have the press conference, which you want to have anyway to serve as a commercial for your event that you believe falsely is about Livegate and pay-per-view. And you very quickly start to realize that you don't know what you're talking about. And once you start to understand that it's the business of boxing, you start to see where you're talking about something very different than a piece of legislation that was passed, written in 1999 and passed in the year 2000. And I don't begrudge the person that asked the question. He really did have a certain charm. And it was a challenging question. It was a tough question. He really wasn't wrong to do it. I will just help to extend upon the answer. The press conference wasn't the time. Set up the interview. But when you do get armed and you do plan to go head to head, you're trying to discuss the sport of boxing, which many people will tell you has failed. But what's happening here today and at the press conference that you stood at, along with 8,000 other people, is the business of boxing. And that is something you don't understand.